see if you can see that. $28,870.
It's selfishness. It's just undisguised selfishness.
Every day I log online and wonder how much dumber can shit get today. Well, American-funded Canadian media outlets and right-wing social media influencers have now manufactured yet another reason to play the victim. This time over a ban on going into the forest during a high risk for wildfires. Something that seems pretty obvious to most of us, but no, if you find a way to grab attention for yourself, this is an issue that apparently is something you need to be worried about. So in this video, I'll discuss what exactly is going on in Nova Scotia, the manufactured outrage by American-funded Canadian media and right-wing social media, and the satisfying to watch reaction to those clowns. So, to lay the groundwork here, high temperatures and little rain in Nova Scotia has led to a situation on the ground that is highly flammable, even if by accident. So because of that, the province of Nova Scotia is restricting travel and activities in the woods because continued hot, dry conditions have greatly increased the risk of wildfires. The restrictions include hiking, camping, fishing, and the use of vehicles in the woods. To be clear, that's in the woods, are not permitted. Trail systems through the woods are off limits. Camping is allowed only in campgrounds. These and other measures are in place on provincial, crown, and private land until October 15th or until conditions allow them to be lifted. The fine for violating the restrictions is $25,000. So, let me play first a clip here from the Nova Scotia Premier discussing this ban.
But you can still go to the beach. In fact, that's a great place to be on these hot, dry days. Just no bonfires. If there's a short trail to get from point A to point B, like from the parking to the beach or to the lake to fish, that's fine. But that's it. No heading into the woods to spend time there. I know it's inconvenient. I know it's the height of summer vacation and people want to do all the activities that we so much enjoy in our great outdoors. We have a beautiful province. I know everybody wants to enjoy it, but we have to stay out of the woods. It's a small price to pay right now to avoid the kind of devastation that we saw from the wildfires in 2023.
It all seems like common sense to me. And speaking of 2023, the ban was also implemented back then. Nova Scotia implements province-wide ban on travel activity in woods due to wildfires. That was May 30th, 2023. They also did it in 2016. Risk for explosive forest fires means Nova Scotians must stay out of the woods. There wasn't an outrage machine for either of those years about this. Now, some are arguing, well, because, in 2016, the fine wasn't 25 grand. It was 180. So because it was 180, now it's 25 grand. Well, now it's a real big deal. I would argue the whole point of the fine is to ensure you're staying out of the woods. Clearly, the 180 didn't work. So they figured, you know what? I guess we got to up it to something that is ridiculous, $25,000, to really tell people do not go into the woods. So I don't know what people are. We'll get to the freak out, but it's so wild to me that this has become yet another reason for some clowns to play the victim. So here is a clip from the premier. This is a day later, Tim Houston discussing why the ban is so extreme.
Well, I think a lot of the time, some of these things are accidental. We had fires last week it was actually the fires started 2 days after somebody had a campfire, which they extinguished. But because it was so dry and it wasn't fully extinguished and the fire had traveled down into the root system and it popped up elsewhere. So, even people, you don't have to be malicious. It can just be just a mistake, right? So. Right. We're just trying to protect our province and really, staying out of the woods, it sucks. It really does. But, losing a bunch of houses to a fire, that sucks even more.
Fires can and do happen by accident. So they are doing what they can to limit the chances of a fire happening. You're never going to eliminate it completely, but you can lessen the chances. And that's what they are doing here. Now, before I get to the hilarious outrage to this and the reaction to that outrage, David Moscrop has a few great tweets here. He's a great writer. Just want to share these. Arguing that people have an unfettered right to enter forests during a time of extreme risk because, quote unquote, freedom ignores that others have a right not to be forced from their homes because of wildfires or confined to those homes because of disastrous air quality. We routinely limit or balance rights to maintain safety, order, and to protect other individual and or collective rights. There are few, if any, rights that don't intersect with the rights of others. You'd hope common sense and decency would be enough to navigate here. They're not. This gets think of traffic laws. you could make a case that these traffic lights are limiting my ability to get to work faster. It's wasting a lot of my time. Why do I have to keep stopping? There's barely any cars on the road. I'm a great driver. Why do I have to stop at these red lights? You can try and make that argument. But if people go, or if the government goes, okay, you know what? You are a good driver. You don't have to obey the laws. That opens the door for everybody. And that there are going to be people within that population that aren't as careful, that will now get into accidents because they're not obeying traffic laws. There's reasons why we have these sorts of restrictions. It doesn't mean you don't have freedom. It means we have a society that we're trying to maintain, and we can't maintain that society if we have jackasses doing whatever the hell they want to do. Like, all of this seems so obvious and clear, and it's been clear up till now, but there's issues, whether it's this, whether it was during COVID, where people have to invent reasons to feel like they're being oppressed, when the reality is that we live in a society and we are trying to maintain that society. Just his last tweet here is also worth mentioning. So we have the law and coercive force. I typically prefer we tread a lighter step with each, but there are individual and collective goods that we need to respect and protect, and there are people who are all to undermine them out of sheer self-interest and petulance. Fine away. Sheer self-interest and petulance gets to Rosa Parks here, a failed People's Party of Canada candidate, in case you're not aware. That is a far-right party. / social media influencer fined 28 grand plus, that is 25,000 plus tax, in Nova Scotia after physically going to authorities and admitting he willfully violated wildfire restrictions. This guy did this clearly for attention, and as you'll see, he got it. Otherwise, I would not have covered this. If no one knew who this was, never saw this clip, I would not be showing you this. But because this is already making news stories, I'm showing you it. So here's Rosa Parks here.
Out in Nova Scotia on Mountain Road in Coxheath. And as you can see behind me, this is the woods. But over here, this is not the woods. This is the Department of Natural Resources, where the conservation officers work, who issue $25,000 fines for going in the woods.
Not bad. I'm Jeff Evely. I called earlier.
Evely?
Yeah, Evely. I spoke to somebody earlier.
Yeah.
About the woods ban.
Yep.
And I understand that you guys issue $25,000 fines right now for anybody who goes in.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to go in the woods over here.
Without forest travel permit when proclamation is effective.
Okay, it goes on. It's boring. He went in the woods and then told them he went in the woods and got fined. Why? For attention. That is the only reason. Why else would he have done this? It was obvious for attention. So Global News covered it. Nova Scotia man gets ticket on purpose for walking in woods to fight fire safety ban. Then you have Post Media funded. So Post Media is an American, or I should say American-owned media organization that owns the Toronto Sun, owns the National Post, which we'll get to shortly as well. But their headline here, veteran ignites debate by challenging Nova Scotia's $25,000 fine for woods walk. He didn't ignite any debate. No one's debating. You know, of course, there are extremists that are debating how, I should be able to do whatever the hell I want, whenever I want. But the rest of us who are not insane are just laughing at how clownish this is. So this gets to like the amount of media, right-wing media, again, American-funded, Canadian media, that have made this into a story is wild. Nova Scotia's paranoid ban on walking in the forest is like, that's not what the ban is. Like, it's just so stupid. If it's worthwhile to keep people out of forest to prevent fires, surely the province will crack down on urban tent encampments. Trying to connect this issue about worry over wildfires to urban tent encampments. Like, if you read through some of these pieces, it really sounds like even these writers don't believe the garbage they're writing. They just know what their role is, what they get paid to do, and that's what they're doing. Like this one. This is a great example. Outside is a privilege, not a right. The imagined thoughts of the Nova Scotia wilderness ban. I had to read this twice to make sure it wasn't satire. I had to look up the writer to make sure this person's not just a jokester. No, this person invents arguments, invents quotes to then argue against, because they can't argue against the actual thing that is happening. So, like, Until hot, dry conditions subside, we will be prohibiting any further discussion of this matter, as well as mentions of the words liberty, freedom, or autonomy. Again, made up quotes that he then argues against. It's clownish. So just on the point about these being owned by an American company, Canada's largest newspaper chain, Post Media, is owned by an American hedge fund headed up by a wealthy donor to Donald Trump. So to be clear on that, Chatham Asset Management is the majority owner in Post Media, a New Jersey-based hedge fund owned by a wealthy Republican donor, Anthony Melchior, whatever his name is. And this headline too, where there are just blatant lies, as I'll show you. COVID attitudes live on in Nova Scotia's inconsistent forest ban. So they write here, in attempting to flatten the risk of an inferno, the province is trampling basic property rights. The most basic right that comes with owning property is access, after all. If you go to the actual website, the Nova Scotia site where they're discussing these restrictions, private landowners are free to use their own properties. You're not banned from your house. Just making up arguments here. Until the fall, it will be illegal to pay a third party to mend a fence through a wooded area without government approval. No, actually, if you own the property, you can. It's in the video. Let me play the video.
I want to note, we're not interfering with people's livelihoods. Lots of people make their living in the woods. It's necessary for them to go into the woods. But times can change when work takes place in the woods. So they can get a permit to carry out their operations on Crown lands. They may need to operate at night, which can take place. For example, forestry operations can take place at night, and we've already heard from some contractors that have made this switch. If you're on private land, they don't need a permit, but we're still encouraging that same change.
They don't even need a permit. Yet you have these clowns, because they have no actual arguments to make. They have to invent reasons to be angry. It's so wild. I want to end on this fantastic reaction here. This is Scott Reid, who is a political commentator. He used to work in politics as well. I'm not all that familiar with, this is a whole different world I'm not all that familiar with. That said, I've seen clips from this podcast and I've enjoyed it. This is the Curse of Politics podcast. Scott Reid reacting to these absolute clowns.
The National Post, I think, has 4 articles about this a day. Like, it's not just X. Like,
Exactly. Post Media. Like, these fucking people, man. These fucking people who don't step foot in the woods, right? Who don't live there. And they don't have any practical experience with this. They decide that this is a nice National Review, modern mega argument that they want to elicit. Like, you're going to look a firefighter in the face who's busting their guts, right? Risking their life to try to not just to try to contain this thing. And all they're saying is, you know what? Like, let's not make the problem worse. Okay. Give us a chance at trying to get our hands around this thing. And these people are sitting in Toronto, in a cafe writing because the Post Media editor said, we'd like 3 more articles on this. And they're all wound up about how, oh, my rights are being trampled on. This is the problem. This drives me crazy. I'm going to my mind, what's the defining characteristic of MAGA, of this whole sort of, post-COVID, pushback, conservative sort of thought line, small c conservative, whatever it is, all that convoy conservatism, right? It's selfishness. It's just undisguised selfishness. I want to fucking do it. I have no sense of community, no sense of obligation to my neighbors, family, friends. If it's what I want to do, well, then I'm a hero. Now, these are the same people who will stand in their driveway with a bottle of beer and bitch and moan about why isn't the government cracking down on those that break the law and do this and do that. Why don't they enforce it? But it's when they enforce something they dislike, well, then they are all they're all freedom fighters. Like, fuck you. We have obligations. We live in a society. If a place is on fire, we rally together to help them. You don't say, well, this is an abrogation of my rights. Like, just fuck right off to these people.
I really enjoyed that. And I feel like that is the attitude that most people in traditional media need to have to this garbage. Don't treat these clowns as if they're making any sort of serious ideological argument. They're not. They're out for attention for themselves. As it applies to right-wing funded media, or I should say American funded media in Canada, they clearly have their own agenda. So these aren't arguments or people that should be taken seriously. They should be laughed out of the room.